Hello and welcome back. You are listening to another episode of the Mark Moss Show, where we talk about the decentralized revolution each and every week, the way the world is swinging from centralization to decentralization. Of course, we look at it through the lens of politics, finance, and technology, that technology being the decentralized technology. We're talking about Bitcoin. We're talking about cryptocurrencies, and that is changing the world right before our very eyes. You know, I try to bring to you, some things, some education so you can see things and understand things differently. And I like to bring to you some of the latest breaking news and headlines so you can stay up to date as this all plays out. So you can stay one step ahead, or as we'd call it in the investing world, front running this information if you get it first. And man, there's no shortage of stuff happening. The world is changing rapidly right before our very eyes. And one thing that really changed the entire world's kind of landscape, specifically, it's both, it's political, it's financial, and it's technology. In China, they have been, they manufacture a lot of the technology, and China has been manufacturing the Bitcoin mining computers. And so they've also been running a lot of those Bitcoin mining computers. They had cheap energy there in China. And last year, in 2021, they had over 50%, maybe as much as 60% of the Bitcoin mining network in China. And China's been trying to ban Bitcoin for a long time. As a matter of fact, I think they've banned it at least 7 times. I don't have them all up in front of me right now. I think at least 7 times, and they've banned it for people. They banned it for exchanges. They banned it for mining, etc. And so they banned it. It was like the final ban. It's like, okay, we banned everything now at this point, and all the miners had to pack up and move. The United States is one of the biggest beneficiaries of that. Most of it has come back to the United States. It's also moved over into Europe as well. I don't have the data in front of me. I think the U.S. now controls over 30% of the network, which is good. It's not as centralized as it was before, with China having 60%. But what I thought was interesting this week is that a new report came out that had some pretty shocking data for me. And again, China has banned Bitcoin at least 7 times. Last year, they got rid of all the Bitcoin mining. And one of the big questions I always get asked about Bitcoin is, yeah, but what if the governments make it illegal? Or maybe it's not even asked as a question. It's just said as a defeated victim mentality, which is like, what's the point? The government's just going to make it illegal. Well, I think everybody would agree that China is it's a communist country, right? It's in the name, CCP, right? Communist Chinese Party. So it's a communist party. They control everything. They control the internet. They have the Great Firewall of China, right? So people in China aren't allowed to go onto Facebook or Google or YouTube or any of that. They can get around it with VPNs and whatnot, but they're not allowed to access any of that. So they're the most restrictive, the most controlled, the command economy with the Great Firewall. They've banned Bitcoin over and over and over and over. They got rid of all the Bitcoin mining, and it's gone. Finally, the 7th, 8th time, finally it's done, right? Not so quick. A new Chainalysis report. So Chainalysis is a company. They use like AI software technology to go across all the blockchains. So blockchains are typically open and somewhat transparent. So they can use this software to go and look at all this, and they can tie it all back to transactions to kind of get some idea of what this data is telling them. And a new Chainalysis report shows last year's ban has not prevented the Chinese from using Bitcoin, as the country's return to the global adoption ranks in the top 10. Wow. So the most restrictive country in the world, the Chinese Communist Party, with the Great Firewall, they've banned it 7, 8 times. They kicked all the Bitcoin miners out, but yet here they are back among the countries with the highest level of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency adoption in the world. It says Vietnam leads the world in overall adoption, while India has the highest number of centralized purchases. Blockchain analytics firm Chainalysis has released its 2022 Global Cryptocurrency Adoption Index. So if you want to go check out this data on your own, remember, I always like to bring you the data, right? I can give you opinions all day. I want to give you the receipts. So if you want to look up in this data, just search 2022 Global Cryptocurrency Adoption Index. But I'm going to give you the key points here. Well, basically, they detailed the global usage of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in this formula, and they rank them based off this formula. I'm not going to dig deep into that. But basically, one of the biggest alarming, the biggest shocking facts, the staggering information is that, again, China, after all the attempts they've done, they haven't been able to ban it. As a matter of fact, last year's ban happened, but now it's back. They're back in the top 10 countries in the world for adoption. The U.S. has risen to 5th, where it was previously ranked 8th. So we think about it being a U.S.-centric thing. And again, what if the government makes it illegal? And of course, the Biden administration put together an executive order to come out with this task force, to come out with all these things about ways they can regulate cryptocurrencies. And so the U.S. wants to do it as well. And what if they make it illegal? Well, the U.S. was 8th in the world. There's a lot of countries out there. Per the UN, there's like over 160 countries. Now, obviously not as big as the United States, but the point is potentially the government could make it illegal for U.S. citizens to own it, but they can't stop it. If China can't stop it, there's no hope that any other nation can stop it for that matter. But even if the U.S. did, it's still alive and well in the rest of the world. Like I said, the U.S. was ranked 8th, and now it's moved up to 5th. Now, a couple of things I saw in this report that I think are important. So one, it shows that overall adoption has slowed worldwide in the bear market. So what do I mean? So cryptocurrencies had their peak in November of 2021. Since then, they've drawn down a lot. Bitcoin is down, 65% at least from that point. Other cryptocurrencies are down 75, 85% or more. And so since November, we're technically in a bear market, right? So we've fallen that far. But what it shows is that global adoption of cryptocurrency reached its current all-time high in quarter 2 of 2021. So quarter 2 would be April, May, and June of 2021. That's when it reached the adoption reached its all-time high. Since then, adoption has moved in waves. It fell in quarter 3. When crypto prices declined, and then it rebounded in quarter 4 when we saw prices rebound to new all-time highs. So in quarter 3, it fell. Quarter 4, it bounced back up. And so the prices went to new all-time highs, and we saw adoption reach new all-time highs, of course, right? But it's important to note that global adoption remains well above its pre-bull market 2019 levels. So what it's saying is that we saw adoption reach a new all-time high when the price hit an all-time high. And when the price dropped, the adoption level dropped a little bit as well. But it's maintained well above its pre-bull market levels. And, for that matter, Bitcoin has as well, right? So in March of 2020, Bitcoin was at, $3,800, $3,800, and today it's $20,000. So Bitcoin has also maintained its level above that as well. Many of those attracted by rising prices in 2020 and 2021 stuck around and continue to invest a significant chunk of their assets in digital assets. Another thing is that emerging markets dominate the index. And so Vietnam, Philippines, Ukraine, India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Morocco, Nepal, Kenya, and Indonesia. And the reason why those adopted is because their currencies are blowing up. They're literally witnessing double-digit inflation, 20%, 50%, 80% inflation, meaning their currencies are free-falling so fast that they're losing purchasing power so fast. If you knew you were going to lose 80% of your purchasing power in your local currency, why not go to cryptocurrency? It dropped 80% too, but at least you had a better chance, maybe. And so it makes sense when countries have horrible currencies, people are going to find adoptions for them. We'll see it in the emerging markets first, but it's also happening in the United States as well. You're listening to The Mark Moss Show. We're talking about the decentralized revolution, talking about some of the latest breaking news that's happened over the week that highlight how the world is changing. Of course, we talk about it through the lens of politics, finance, and technology. And even though the price is down of Bitcoin, we know that the adoption levels are up. That was a great report. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And we have in the United States, regardless of where you're at in the world, this matters to you because the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency of the world. So whatever the U.S. government pressures the Federal Reserve to do, and then whatever they do with the money affects you no matter where you're at in the world. Even if your nation works off a different type of currency, you're probably witnessing massive levels of inflation because of what's happening with the U.S. dollar. So all eyes are on the U.S. markets, as they should be. And I've been talking about, there's a lot of uncertainty in the air with what's happening with the markets. We had a pretty big drop in S&P 500, the NASDAQ, et cetera. And now we've bounced about a 50% retracement, which is textbook before the next crash comes down. And we don't know. But one thing that we do know is all eyes are on this midterm election that's coming up here in November in the United States. It might be, and I know we say this a lot, and maybe because it's always true, but this might be one of the biggest elections that we'll see. And the reason why is because if the Democrat Party, which has control right now, if they can manage to get more control or maintain the control they have, then for the next 2 years, they're going to be able to just slam through anything they want. The way the government's set up is that we have checks and balances. So one side doesn't just ramrod everything through. If we can get the other party, the Republican Party, to get more control back, then we're going to have those checks and balances. Now, usually when it comes to voting, most people are concerned only about themselves, which is a problem, right? The world used to be the United States was founded by people who cared about other people more than themselves. They came to this country risking their lives for the betterment of future generations, and not even that long ago. Even I guess even still today, we have immigrants coming to this country who are sacrificing everything, hoping for a better life for them and for the future generations. But really today, we see all our politicians like Nancy Pelosi. She's gotten famously rich. She beats every single hedge fund and the best investors in the world. She beats them because she has insider information. And so we see all these people, they're just out for themselves. Like Joe Biden, the big guy getting his kickbacks, right? Everyone's looking out for themselves. And so that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the country. And so we see the rest of the country voting for things that help them, as opposed to thinking about, hey, this is good for me. Yeah, it gives me a bunch more money. But what does that do to the country? What does that do to my kids if they print a bunch of money to offset this for me? Oh, they're going to pay off my student loans. I love that. That's great for me. But is that going to cause more dissension in the United States? Are some people going to be unhappy about that? Will it be unfair? What happens if we print trillions of more dollars? Is that bad for the budget? Like, instead of thinking about the implications for everybody, they think about it in terms of themselves. But one of the things that we think about, and one thing I think a lot about, is that the aging demographics inside of politics. And so we can see specifically in the Democrat Party, the average age is like 70 years old. Something like that. I don't have the exact data in front of me, but about that range. Whereas I think the average age in the Republican Party is 46 or something like that. But the point is that we have all these politicians that are getting very old, and they're making lots of laws that are going to be around forever, and they're going to have massive implications for future generations, specifically around a time right now when we have a technological revolution happening. We have a brand new technology the world has never seen that's going to change the course of humanity, and we have very old people in power that are making rules, and they don't understand the technology, nor do they understand the implications of it, nor do they even care about the greater good. They only care about themselves, and that's a big problem. So a lot of people that see this power of this new technology, like myself, I care about getting people into power who do see the benefits of it, who do understand this could be a big benefit for the United States to have this technology, who do want to leave it open for innovation so our future generations can benefit from it. I care about that, and a lot of people out there do too. And so Coinbase has created an app to track U.S. politicians' crypto friendliness ahead of the midterm elections. So if I'm going to vote for someone, I should do my research, and I should find out, does this person represent my interests? Does this person want to push forward policies that I think are the best or not? And unfortunately, most people don't even think about that. They don't even ask themselves a question, and they certainly don't spend any time to investigate the answer. So Coinbase is going to help. They're going to make it easy. They're going to let U.S. users track how crypto-friendly their local politicians are through its new trading app. So they launched a policy education initiative that includes a voter registration tool, so they can help you get voted. They can help you get caught up to date on what these politicians are. And they say the initiative will now be incorporated into the company's crypto trading app. And U.S. users will be able to see, quote, a crypto sentiment score for members of Congress. And so now you can see at least how they stack up on technology and cryptocurrencies. You can at least see that. Now, as far as any of the other issues, like how they are on passing stimulus or states' rights or upholding the Constitution or whatever it is that's important to you, those things are pretty important to me. But you should still go find those on your own. But at least you're able to get this for the sentiment scores of how they are on cryptocurrency. Now, Coinbase says that they've been actively lobbying the U.S. Congress for some time, and they have been. They've been kind of throwing their weight around, trying to help push new policies. One of which we covered recently was the Tornado Cash protocol, and they have been pushing that in court, and they've been making some headway. So Coinbase is not a company that's very well liked in the Bitcoin space per se, because they trick so many people into buying all these other cryptocurrencies. But as much hate as I can throw their way, I also have to applaud them for at least pushing the envelope a little bit. They formed a political action committee, and it says that the leaders we elect this November will be the ones making critical decisions about the future of cryptocurrency. And so they want to help people see that. So plenty of hate I can throw Coinbase's way, but I have to applaud them for at least helping people get this information. Look, if you don't know who you're voting for or what you're voting on, just don't vote. Yeah, it's everybody's right. Sure, it's your right. But if you don't know what you're voting on, if you haven't spent the time to educate yourself, then don't do it. Just don't. You don't have to. It's your right, but you're not obligated to. And if you don't have the information, then it's probably better that you just sit out. And I know that sounds a little bit harsh, and I'm not telling you to sit out. If you're not going to sit out, then educate yourself. Spend the time to learn both sides of the argument. Don't just read one side of the argument. Look at both. And if you care about the new technology of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, then it would make sense to vote for someone who's who's friendly to that, as opposed to trying to shut it down like so many others are. One of the things we talk about is the way the world is breaking apart, right? We have this centralized control, these centralized entities, the UN, the World Economic Forum, the IMF, right? The dollar homogeny, all these things, but that's all breaking apart. Russia, China, and the BRICS nations are challenging that, trying to move us from a singular polar world to a multipolar world. And it's all happening right before our very eyes. And if you don't pay attention to the actual signpost, maybe you're missing it. But it's important to understand, because the world is breaking apart. But as it's breaking apart, a cornered animal, especially a wounded cornered animal, is very dangerous. They know they're wounded. They know they're probably going to die. They're cornered. They got nothing to lose, and they're very dangerous. And that's where these central entities, these nation states are. They realize that they've lost the narrative. They realize that their time is short, and they're going to do everything they can to squeeze and hang on to that power, and that's exactly what's happening. And we're seeing it big over in Europe right now. I made a video on my YouTube channel recently talking about the European Union on the verge of breaking up. You can just search Mark Moss on YouTube and find that. Maybe search Mark Moss, European Union breaking up, something like that. You'll probably find it. But we're witnessing, again, the centralization of the European continent under the European Union, and now that's threatening to be broken up and back to independent states, back to the thesis that I have. And one of the biggest catalysts for this is this energy crisis that's happening right now. And of course, they're trying to fix this energy crisis, but they're also intentionally causing the energy crisis. It's pretty interesting. How can you cause the problem and continue to cause the problem and continue to double down on causing the problem, but at the same time try to fix it? The answer is you can't. If you're trying to figure out an answer, the answer is that you can't. You can't ride two horses with the same butt. That's basically what happens. So we saw the European Union. They want to launch a, quote, deep and comprehensive reform, end quote, of the electricity market. So to catch you up real quick, Europe is going through a massive energy crisis. They've decided not to get any of their own energy out of the ground, right? They've shut down all their natural gas fields and et cetera. They've shut down some of it on purpose, like Germany shut down all their nuclear reactors. France, who's been very energy independent because they have, I think, 56 nuclear reactors. Half of them aren't running because they just haven't fixed them. They just need maintenance, et cetera. And so this is the problem that they've caused on themselves. And now without the natural gas, they can't create the electricity. They can't create the fertilizer. They can't grow the food. On and on and on. I'm not going to go through all that, but basically, what I want to talk about right here is that the European Union wants to launch a deep and comprehensive reform of the energy market. That sounds pretty scary, and I want to dig in because it is. This is the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, if I have that right. Ursula von der Leyen. So, von der Leyen said the market was designed on the principle of merit, and now it's not fit for the purpose. What does that mean? It was designed on the principle of merit. That means, merit, like if you do good, you get rewarded. If you do bad, you get disciplined. That's what merit is, right? So that's natural. That's emergent. If I work harder and I'm smarter and I employ better ideas, then I probably do better than you. That's my merit. And if you're lazy and you're not efficient with your resources, then you go down. That's what merit is. But she's saying that the market was designed on the principle of merit, meaning the companies that do really well and think ahead and plan and reinvest, the companies that do really well have done better. She said, no, it doesn't work anymore. It's not fit for our purpose anymore. The EU energy ministers met Friday to discuss a 5-point plan. It's always 5. 5 is a very dangerous 5-point plan, which includes a price cap on Russian gas. That's funny because they're not supposed to be buying Russian gas anyway because of the sanctions, so they're going to cap it, okay. They're going to create a windfall tax on fossil fuel companies' profits. Okay. They're going to create a mandatory target for reducing peak hour energy use by 5%. And create emergency credit lines for power companies. So they're going to limit how much profit companies can make. What could go wrong? I thought businesses were in business to make a profit. And if you take away their profit, then why would they start the business? Pretty good question to ask. And they're going to create a mandatory target for reducing peak energy hour usage. So, hey, I know when you come home from work, you like to turn your lights on and, you want to watch TV and, you might want to turn your air conditioning on because it's been hot all day, something like that. I get it. But sorry, you can't. You got to reduce your energy usage. Now, never mind the fact that we've had plenty of energy forever, and we've been making electricity for 100 years, and it's never been a problem, but it is now. We don't know why. Well, it's our fault, but we're not going to admit that. We're just going to say you can use less. And we're going to create emergency credit lines for power companies. So we're going to give them a bunch of money. We're going to print it out of thin air. We're going to steal your purchasing power, and we're going to give it to them. Sounds great. Addressing the windfall tax and revenue cap plans, von der Leyen said that while profits were not necessarily a bad thing, so it's not... companies making a profit isn't necessarily bad, but it is wrong to receive extraordinary record revenues and profits benefiting from war on the back of our consumers. In these times, profits must be shared. Shared with who? Oh, to those who need it most. Not everybody. It's not equal. I thought they wanted equality. That's what they always talk about. Equality, equity, all these things. So equality would be everybody getting helped. But no, we're going to share it with those who need it most. So not everybody, but just the people that we decide to get it. Now, the thing with profits, again, businesses are in business to make a profit. If a business is making way too much money, what had happened is other businesses will enter that thing. So, for example, I found this niche where, hey, I can get these coconuts off these trees here. I can go down to the beach and I can sell them for $50 each. I'm gouging people, right? Well, what's going to happen? Well, another person's going to move and sell coconuts right next to me. He's going to do it for cheaper. He's going to do it for $30. And then another person's going to come and do it for 20. Another person's going to come and do it for 10. And all of a sudden, my profit margin is going to get squeezed because there was so much profit that other people jumped in. Right? So that's what happens with profits. Now, another thing that happens with profits is that oil companies lose money most of the time because they're trying to find oil. The market's going up and down. They're defaulted on their debt. So out of the last 6 of the last 10 years, they've lost money. But then they hope to make it up in a couple good years. So 6 or 7 of the 10 years are bad. They lose money, but in 2 or 3 of the good years, they make up enough money to offset all the bad years and still come out ahead. But now what they want to do is they say, well, this year you made a lot of profit, so we need to take that from you. But they're like, but yeah, that just makes up for the bad years. And now how are we going to reinvest? How are we going to go find new oil supplies? How are we going to pay our shareholders? If we don't pay our shareholders, then who's going to reinvest again? I think you get the point. Now, she gave a speech and she basically said, look, everyone's got to do what they can. We have to take control of the economy. What they're saying is we want to control the economy. We want to nationalize this. I'm going to tell you about this speech that she has. I'm going to tell you exactly what she said. And then we're going to talk about the scam that this is and where this leads. Because history tells us over and over where this leads. And hint, it's not good. So I'm going to come back with that and more in a minute. You're listening to the Mark Moss Show. We're talking about the decentralized revolution, talking about the way the world is swinging from centralization to decentralization. And this story highlights it. We're witnessing it happening right now. They're trying to hang on because the European Union's trying to break apart, and they're squeezing it, but they're only making it worse. I'm going to tell you exactly what they're trying to do, what this really means, and what history tells about this. European chief Ursula von der Leyen and what she was saying. And basically what she's saying, what they're trying to do is they are trying to take over more central control over the energy markets. That's what they're doing. So right now you have all these energy providers who are somewhat quasi kind of working for the government, but they're still somewhat independent. And so you have all these different people in the chain that create stuff and produce it and transport it and all these things. And they just want to take it all over. Let's just centralize it all. Just give us the control. That's always the answer, right? More government. If you just give us the control, we could probably do better. And so Ursula von der Leyen gave a quote-unquote muscular State of the Union address this week. And she said, quote, "Never before has this parliament debated the state of our union with a war raging on European soil." So she went right into this war. So it was a very war-centric, war-heavy speech. And I guess it kind of is. I mean, it's a war. I don't know what they're fighting. They're fighting their own stupid ideas, I guess. But she said there's a clear warning. Quote, "The months ahead of us will not be easy, be it for families who are struggling to make ends meet or businesses who are facing tough choices about their future," end quote. She said gas prices have risen by more than 10 times. Gas prices have risen by 10 times. Who can afford that? I mean, you think it's bad here in the United States or California. That's risen 10 times there. She said making ends meet is becoming a source of anxiety for millions of businesses and households. Yet the pain has only just started, she says. Wow, that doesn't sound good. She doesn't paint a very rosy picture, does she? But then she talks about France. As France capped energy price hikes at 15%, she proposed electricity rationing without details of how. So she praised France for price fixing, taking control over businesses. And then she proposed also, right, we talked about that, reducing electricity, rationing it, without the details of how to do that. Basically, it sounded like a Cold War equivalent speech talking about how they need to take over the economy. So in times of war, what we've seen is the government kind of takes over the war. They invoke, and President Biden's trying to do it in the United States as well, invoking a wartime economy. A wartime economy means the government can control the economy to act as they see fit. Oh, we need more of these particular goods, so now I'm going to command these industries to make these goods for me. And it's just a way that they can get more control. So she's trying to promote a semi-war / planned economy in regards to energy, right? The energy crisis will rage for years, she said, with untold pain at unknown cost, and Europe will simultaneously have to rearm, even at its industrial production will slow. So forget, creating goods and services that people need. That's real wealth, right? Forget the manufacturing of parts that we can export to bring money back in. Forget all of that. We're going to just slow industrial production down so we can focus more on our own agenda, which is, controlling the energy. That's what she's saying. But it's a big scam. It's a big scam. It's a big scam because they're trying to promote climate. They're trying to promote this green economy. They're trying to promote this net zero, is what they call it. And net zero is somewhat of a scam. There's this article that came out here this week on the Daily Mail, and it's some pictures. I can't show you the pictures, but it says it's devastating pictures of the rape of America's century-old hardwood forests, stripped bare to provide wood pellets for European energy plants in a diluted bid to meet climate goals. So what's happening? So Europe doesn't have enough energy to heat their homes this year. In Germany, in the UK, even in France, they have a big problem. So they are turning on their coal plants. Now, energy has a density. So the lowest form would be like biofuels or dung. You have to burn a whole building worth to get enough energy, and it's very pollutant. The next one up would be wood. Wood you need a ton of wood, and it's also very pollutant. Lots of smoke goes in the air. The next would be coal. So coal has more energy density. So I need to burn way less coal than I would firewood. And it's still, pollutant into the air, but I need way less of it than I do wood. And then you have oil. So I need way less oil than I would coal because energy density, and it's way less pollutant. And then you have natural gas, and then you have uranium. But because Germany can't get the gas, they turned off their nuclear reactors, which is the most energy dense form. You can get like a cupful of uranium and power a whole city, but they shut theirs off. And now they've decided not to get gas out of the ground, and now they can't get it from Putin anymore because of the sanctions. So now they've turned coal back on. So that's like 3 orders of magnitude worse. And now they're trying to stock up on firewood. Okay? So firewood is even worse. But now nations around other countries in the European Union, like Bulgaria, have banned exporting firewood. It's like, no, we got to keep it for ourselves. So now they're getting it from the United States. So now they're chopping down the rape of America's century-old hardwood forests, and they're stripping them bare to turn the wood into wood pellets to send to Europe so they can burn them in their fireplace to stay warm. So if they really cared about the environment and the climate and the carbon, they would want to keep the trees because the trees sequester carbon. The trees, they take the carbon out of the air and put it into the soil. But instead, they're chopping the trees down. So now we have no trees to pull more carbon out of the air. And then they're going to ship them to Europe where they can burn them, which is the second most pollutant type of energy you can have. How's that sound? More than 24 pellet mills are devouring trees across the North American coastal plain. Historic forests stretching from Texas to Virginia are under a threat. Wood pellet firm chiefs say that they use wood waste. It creates jobs in the U.S. That's good, right? It creates jobs. That's good. Oh, man. But environmentalists warn that hundreds of thousands of acres of forest are being torn down each year in the U.S. Southeast to make wood pellets to fuel European power plants. Hundreds of thousands of acres of forest are being torn down in the United States so we can ship it. So imagine all the machinery, all the tractors that burn diesel fuel. So you're burning all this diesel fuel and the tractors tear the trees down. Then you need the tractors to load it onto, trains, and then the trains burn more diesel fuel to get it to the ports, and then the ships burn more diesel fuel to get it over to Europe, and then Europe burns it all in their fireplace, which puts all that up into the air instead of just turning their nuclear reactors back on. Instead of just getting the natural gas out of the ground. Do you really think they care about the climate? Because if they do, they're sure making some pretty bad choices, in my opinion. The so-called North American coastal plain has already lost 70% of its historic vegetation, thanks in part to an $11 billion global industry that is set to grow to $20 billion by 2030. Let's tear down those trees and let's burn them. That's good for the environment. Anyway. Clown world at its greatest. You're listening to the Mark Moss Show, talking about the way the world is changing from centralization to decentralization, and these are the stories that highlight it. This is insanity at its worst. It's not going to last for much longer. I think the European Union is going to break up. I made a video about it. You can check it out on my YouTube channel. And I'll keep bringing you the latest stories so you can stay up to date on it. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on social media at @1MarkMoss. I'd love to hear from you. And that's what I got. Thanks for listening. Until next time. Since you've stayed to the end, I know you like this video, which means you're probably going to really like this video right here and this video right here.